I've really made it a focus to try and push the envelope in terms of what I can learn. Not just in terms of what I can do to myself, but how is this going to work better? So it's not just about doing weird things or doing different things for the sake of doing weird or different things. To me, that's just a waste of time, and that's a lot of what you see on some people's Instagram things. It's like, okay, you're doing chin-ups with a refrigerator strapped to your stomach. That's great, but is anybody else going to do that?
No.
I want to do stuff that anybody can do, that somebody will pick up and say, okay, that's really cool. I want to try that too, and this is even more effective.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Strong by Design podcast. Hosting today, Coach Chris Wilson. So great to have you. Thank you for finding our show. And we have a terrific conversation coming here with a good old friend of ours here at Critical Bench, somebody that we go back many years with. And we're going to have fun talking about strength training and muscle building and being manly, feeling strong, having fun, doing it safely, and really like the passion that fuels it all. Okay. So before we get to that, though, as always at the start of the show, I love to again just live in gratitude for the many listeners that we've had over the years, for coming back. So many, just hundreds of episodes. We've been honored to have this show now for years. We're approaching our 6th season of Strong by Design, and the show's been nothing short of a blessing, just a way to connect with people, all walks of life, experts in many different fields. We can cover so much ground. We talk about just all things body, mind, spirit related on the show. And they seem to have a way of the three of them connecting in a lot of the conversations too. It's not just a singular thing because we are, as human beings, we're pretty complex, and there's a lot of parts to us. So it's definitely worth some deep discussion. That's what I love about the show, is we go deep on things. It's not superficial conversation like many of us are used to having in our daily life. When we interact with people, it's usually very top, kind of superficial level. And it's nice to connect with somebody for 30 minutes to an hour and really go explore some different subjects, and sometimes controversial ones too. So that's been a lot of fun. So if you could do me a favor, at the end of this conversation today, share this episode with someone that you think would enjoy it. A friend, a family member, maybe somebody who needs to be guided or led into something, maybe a form of motivation to somebody, or a wake-up call. Conversations like this are meaningful and need to be shared with someone. So we are that would be great if you could think of one person to share it with. That really helps the show grow organically and reaches more people. And hit that 5-star rating. Leave us a review if you'd be so kind, because that also helps too. So thank you in advance for that. So let's get right down to it, because we have an amazing guest, an extraordinary guy I've known now for about 10 years. We just kind of realized that since I've been with Critical Bench. He was very early on. I was connected to Nick and his content, what he was doing. We were kind of on very similar paths back then. As businesses, and we're still grinding and still getting it done, and it's been so much fun to watch him grow and him continue to do what he loves. Nick Nilsson is known as the mad scientist of muscle. There's nobody on the planet that you see on camera experiment with weight training and strength training and being innovative and fueling passion and all of these things I talk about. Just a guy that absolutely loves what he does, and he does it very well. He is probably one of the nicest guys you ever met, and we've been together in a room several times, had nice conversations, and he's been on our podcast before. If you go way back, I don't know what episode it was, probably like 30 or 40 something. He was on Strong by Design almost 5 years ago at this point. And so it's great to have you back. Nick Nilsson, welcome, my friend.
Thank you, man. It's good to be here. Good to chat with you again here. Good to be on the show again here.
It really is good. It really is good. We were getting a good little laugh in right before we hit record about what I've created here, the habitat, if you will, in my office has certainly shifted gears in recent years. You know, I kind of had Mike and I had the COVID, a COVID knee-jerk response to like childhood stuff, right? So like I started collecting like all these like Batman and like superhero stuff that I loved from growing up, and he started collecting some G.I. Joe stuff. You know, that was like his main thing. I love Batman and He-Man stuff. I loved like the muscle superhero look. I thought as a kid, well, that's what I want to have when I get bigger.
That seems perfectly reasonable to achieve that physique too, doesn't it, when you're a kid?
Right? Well,
pick up a few weights and I'll be looking like
that's
that.
Right.
Oh yeah, the heat. I love that stuff, man. I had almost the whole collection, Castle Grayskull works.
Oh my gosh, dude! Yeah, Mike's actually been prodding me to like get the original Castle Grayskull. You know, for anyone listening that even like was around in the '80s, you might have a clue what we're talking about. It's this really cool castle that you could get for your He-Man characters or figures, and
had a trap door in the throne room.
Right. It was
what more could an 8-year-old ask for?
Dude, I have great memories of playing with that stuff for just. It was prior to like the video gaming experience that most kids enjoy nowadays. But, this is back when Atari was the thing, and it really didn't hold your attention for more than maybe 30 minutes back then. But I would get my older brothers to like interact with me with the figures, because it's fun to play by yourself, but it's more fun when like get your brothers or your siblings to be characters too, and then you could like fight each other and do all that stuff. So, it's fun. It's fun as an adult to kind of just collect that stuff and then display it in a way that's also fun. Meaning I don't buy these things just to have them and keep them in their original case in my closet. Like they're on full display. People walk in my room and just like like, whoa, are
you okay?
Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry. I'm good.
Yeah.
My kids think it's kind of cool and different and fun. And my wife just shakes her head like, I mean, that's pretty much what all my wife does. She says you're crazy. That's pretty much what she says.
Yep. And you're like, yep, you married me.
Yes, you married me, honey. Yeah, I've been this guy for 20 years. So anyway, Nick, again, always a pleasure, as I already said, to have you back and to reconnect with you, because, you're a busy guy. You're constantly in your gym space formulating, as mad scientists do, formulating new things to wreck your body. But when or traveling to Arizona, right, or out with the dogs, or whatever it is that you're doing, because we're both dog lovers too. I like to make that a very big point. You're a husky dog lover, correct?
I had huskies for a long time, and then our last husky actually passed away back in 2019. And then we had a Chow Chow and a Malamute, and our Malamute, unfortunately, he passed away about a year and a bit ago.
Oh, wow.
So we're just down to one dog now, one Chow Chow.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is something. I mean, they feel like they're just here for such a short time, doesn't it?
It's always too short. Yeah, it's always too short.
It's always too short.
But you just got to love them up while they're here, and make the most of it.
Exactly right. I had a conversation some episodes back with a guy by the name of Brian Allsrue. You might be familiar with Brian. If you're not, I know you'll love him, Nick, because he's right in he's a dog lover, and he's a big strongman competitor guy, doing
nice.
Crazy lifts, awesome, and he loves the outdoors, loves nature. He lives on a big piece of property. And he has 2 Rhodesian Ridgebacks. those big, beautiful, like brown dogs that have kind of like a almost like a mohawk on their spine of hair that kind of goes the different direction. And big plus 100-pound dogs. And we started chatting right away, like his dog's like in the room with him as we're, having our conversation, and we start talking dogs just like this. So, but yeah, I have 2 at home, and they're just, they're special, man. And I don't mind saying that, saying that's the case.
Yeah.
I think animals and taking care of animals makes us better people. To be honest with you. Really. So,
what the saying goes, like everybody thinks they have the best dog, and everybody is right.
Dude, it's so true, right?
Yeah.
Everyone thinks, just like everyone thinks, like my grandpa was the best. Maybe not. Man, some people have some crappy grandparents, but it's kind of like, isn't that funny? It's all perspective, but. Yeah, there's so many wonderful things about being the owner of I say dogs, but certainly cats too. Cats have their place, but how funny it is that we all can feel that same way, and that connection that we have with our furry friends. So, okay, that's obviously not what we're really getting down to today. First, I want, Nick, for our audience members who aren't familiar with you, because I'm sure there's people listening that don't know, okay, what's the mad scientist of muscle? What is that? What does that mean? Give them a little bit of background about, kind of who you are, what you do, and what you've made really a name for in the online space.
Yeah, absolutely. I got started in training, weight training, when I was 16, and I'm 49 now. So I've been at it for quite a long time. And when I first started training, it was to build muscle because I was a skinny cross-country runner. I was 140 pounds soaking wet. And the first while where I started training, I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. So I ended up doing a lot of dumbbell curls with those cement weights from Sears, with the plastic casing and stuff. And then once I graduated high school, then I got more serious. And then I didn't do the cross-country running anymore, and I actually went to university, and I learned how to train better, and I discovered cafeteria food, and I gained 75 pounds in my first 8 months of training. So that was fun. I actually, very luckily, after 3 or 4 months of training, I started doing, you may be familiar with the Bulgarian burst, the serious growth, Leo Costa, that kind of thing.
Yes, wow, that's old school.
Very old school, and it came to me just at the right time too. I bought one of those manuals over the internet. There was no internet. What am I even talking about? I mail ordered it, which is like, do people even do that anymore? I don't know, but I mail ordered it, and I started training 6 days a week, twice a day, and that just took me really over the edge. It was a really intense learning curve on that, learning what I was actually capable of doing and capable of eating. And I calculated I was eating 8,500 calories a day on some days.
Just kind of anything that you could get your hands on, because to eat that many calories, it's not clean.
No, it wasn't. No, and a lot of cafeteria food. There was eggs. There was fried stuff. I had pretty much ran the spectrum of all kinds of things. I'd be studying at night, and I'd eat an entire box of cereal just mindlessly while I'm sitting there, So training twice a day, eating like 6-7 times a day, packing in calories. And I literally went from 140 pounds up to almost 220 in the course of about 8 months.
Wow.
And, with that calorie intake, it's not all muscle, but a good portion of it was. I'd probably say about 2/3 of it was, to the point where I was pretty much unrecognizable from where I started.
Wow. And this was at what age, Nick?
That would have been 17 going through to 18.
Wow. And that's right in the sweet spot, too, for growth for boys, really, right?
That's prime time right there. That's taking advantage of everything right there. And, I was getting such good results. I was literally seeing the scale going up like almost every time I was in the gym. And that's, even if you're getting a little fat, you're still seeing that scale go up, and it gives you that reward in getting strong as a moose and stuff. So, so that for the first while there, that was kind of my introduction. It's like, this is not normal training. This is not like cutting magazine articles out and, copying the pros or anything like that, which, that's what I started kind of doing. And that kind of was good for a while until those beginner gains kind of tapered off. And then it's like, okay, I need something else here. And luckily I came across that, and it actually really shaped a lot of the way I approach training these days too, with overtraining, pulling back, and kind of understanding that process in your body where nothing really goes on a straight line. You really have to kind of build yourself up, give yourself a recovery. And that's true at any age, not, even as you get older, but when you're younger as well. And so that's kind of my first year of training. Once I got into my second year of training, then I started really experimenting more with different movements and training styles and reading a lot more varied training methodologies. And that's when I realized I wanted to go into this for a living. So I started taking all the physical education courses and having that as my degree, which is anatomy, kinesiology, biomechanics, physiology. So I have the background in all that stuff too. So I understand, muscle attachments and, the physiology of how everything works, which is a tremendous help when you want to do what I do, which is basically combine training with science and with a little bit of madness as well. So it's like
sprinkled in a little bit of madness, yeah,
copious amounts. So what also kind of helped shape what I do is my dad had a basement gym, and he was not shy about doing whatever he thought was going to be effective. And he built his own equipment out of duct tape and plumbing pipe. And so my entire growing up I saw this, and to me that was never a weird thing. So I kind of carried that over into my adult life, where I'm like, okay, this doesn't bother me if I'm, people are looking at me like, what the heck is that guy doing? It's like, I couldn't care less. People are staring. The only thing with that being, when I've done that kind of stuff in regular gyms, the only time I've ever gotten kicked out of a gym is for doing deadlifts, regular straight bar deadlifts.
Yep, because of the thud. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. None of the other crazy stuff has ever batted an eye or gotten me booted out of anywhere. It's just deadlifts. But anyway, so what I've kind of, in the first few years of training, realized is there's a lot more to just, than just doing the normal stuff. And the more I kind of delved into it, the more fascinating it was to me. And I really went down the rabbit hole with some of this stuff. And to the point where I wrote a book on this kind of in my spare time. This was before the internet. I still had a computer, but it was before the internet. And was basically writing down everything new that I learned. So I ended up with a stack of about probably 200 page, those lined notebooks, just like literally. I have one of them actually sitting right here that I refer to every now and again. And these things are just filled with notes. And I got to the point where, okay, now I got to transcribe these because I want to write a book, and that's all, computerized. So I was writing this down. Now I got to type this all out into books. And I did that, and I started doing that, and I only got like a couple of books in, and I still got a stack of these things. But over the past, 20 years, 25 years on top of that, I've really made it a focus to try and push the envelope in terms of what I can learn. Not just in terms of what I can do to myself, but how is this going to work better? So it's not just about doing weird things or doing different things for the sake of doing weird or different things. To me, that's just a waste of time, and that's a lot of what you see on, some people's Instagram things. It's like, okay, you're doing chin-ups with a refrigerator strapped to your stomach. That's great. But is anybody else going to do that?
No.
I want to do stuff that anybody can do, that somebody will pick up and say, okay, that's really cool. I want to try that too, and this is even more effective. Like, for example, one of my favorite exercises is, I call it a Nilsson curl. I hadn't seen it before. It's like, okay, I'm going to name it after myself.
There you go.
That's fine. It's a chin-up, but it's for your biceps. So what it does is imagine like you've got the chin-up bar here. Now you have the chin-up bar. Now you set in the power rack another bar just below it, like the rungs of a ladder. So your forearms are braced against that. Now, instead of when you're doing a normal chin-up, usually you have some movement like that. When you lock down this position, it takes your biceps from a secondary mover into a primary mover. So instead of primarily using the lats to do a chin-up, you're primarily using your biceps to do a chin-up. So you're basically taking your entire body weight and putting that on your biceps. And the growth you can get is absolutely phenomenal. And this is something, if you're strong enough, just about anybody can do. And it's something that, it's one of the things when somebody asks me what I do, it's like, try this, set these bars up, now do this. And their eyes go all wide and they do it. And they're like 2 reps in and they're like, oh, the pump is just incredible because it's a bicep body weight exercise that uses almost your entire body weight.
Right.
Yeah. So that's essentially what I do is I hesitate to say I invent new things. I kind of do, but half the time when I do, somebody says, oh yeah, they did that all the time in the 50s. So it's like, literally that comes up at me all the time. So like, I don't even claim to have invented anything at this point. I probably have, and I'm sure I've come up with stuff that nobody's done before, but a lot of the times I'm just kind of reinventing stuff that's been around already. Right. So I never really say, this is my exercise, I claim this. It's like, no, I mean, it's, there's exercises that I thought that I came up with that 20 years later I see a video of, and I was like, oh yeah, this is named that, and somebody's done that, 30 years ago. It's like, okay, that's great. I don't need to claim that.
That's right.
But what I want to do is continuously push my knowledge forward and help people push their knowledge forward. And one of my favorite things to do is take normal training equipment and help people do many more things with it.
Yeah, because with just a power rack, sorry, my speakers are probably getting blown out a little bit from listening to you. If you just take a normal power rack with a few barbells and some plate weight and just a nice set of dumbbells, that's primarily what you're working with, right? In most, 90+% of your content is power rack, barbell, plate weight, dumbbells. I mean, and I've been following your content for years, and I'm always seeing something new, something that I've never seen you do before. And I'm like, there he is again. And, I've been liking and commenting on your things all the time. I mean, and then you get into some of your outdoor things where you're in your neighborhood. Tell me, and tell the listeners, what are some of the, and I know what some of them are, but our listeners don't. What are some of the crazier things that you've done to yourself, incorporating some type of weighted apparatus, and like, let's just say on the road?
Oh yeah, I've got some good ones. I've got some really good ones for that. Probably the most challenging one I did was I did a yoke carry with 500 pounds for a mile. And that took me about 3 hours of just intervals of doing that. And if you've ever done yoke carries with about 500 pounds, I was managing to make it probably about, it was about 40 feet at the start and about 10 feet towards the end. But I was up and down the street, and I actually made a stand out of plumbing pipe using a yoke bar, squat bar, and I would walk forward, and I caught this all on video. My rest period was changing the angle of the camera. So I did this all myself. I didn't have anybody filming it. I carried it. I'd go set the camera about further on, carry it some more, go set the camera further on, and so on, back and forth for a mile. And it actually worked out to be just right in terms of rest intervals. So, and I kept going for a mile. And by the time I was done, you'll never guess what was the most sore on me the next day.
Okay, I'll take a guess.
Take a guess.
I think that the most sore area for you would have been in the lower body, is my guess, and it would have been calf related.
You're close. It was actually hip flexors.
Hip flexors, okay. Really?
Isn't that weird? My hip flexors were destroyed the next day.
Wow.
Just from lifting my feet up with that weight. Even though there was no direct resistance on them. My traps weren't sore. My calves were fine. My back was great. My hip flexors were sore as just crazy sore.
Wow. Describe to someone listening who's not familiar with a yoke. What is a yoke, and you carrying that a mile with 500 pounds loaded on it, which I don't even know if I've ever done one yoke carry with 500 pounds on it myself. I know I've gone to like 400 here, on the turf, but I don't know I've ever gone to 5. Describe that.
Yeah, the way I had it set up, it wasn't the typical straight yoke bar. I actually had what's called a safety squat bar, which essentially is a bar that has handles on front, loops around, it's padded all the way around. So the weight sits basically right in your center of mass. So it's much more comfortable than a regular yoke bar that's sitting on your back. With that one, that would really limit how far I could go. But with this, it was sitting in basically the sweet spot. So it wasn't comfortable. I'm not going to say it was comfortable, but it was reasonable as far as how much I could actually carry on that.
Wow.
And so I showed this to a chiropractor and he about lost his mind.
Oh, yeah, I would think so. You go, I don't recommend that for good spinal health.
The video that I shot it with, I actually, in the background, I have the Ride of the Valkyries playing in the background, and I sped up the whole thing so that you could actually watch the whole thing. And if you go on YouTube and look at 500-pound yoke carries, you'll probably be able to see it there pretty quick. Because nobody else has done that kind of stupid stuff.
No one's doing that. You've done some similar. You have like a makeshift like wheelbarrow loading system there. What's one of the crazier activities you've done with that now?
Actually, the wheelbarrow is an interesting one. That's actually one that I bought. And I did wheelbarrow carries with 800 pounds on that. The really crazy one is it's actually it's what's called a gear sled, where it's basically like a sled, but like a big bucket that my wife found garbage picking. So it's like literally just junk that we pulled off. And I filled it up with 700 pounds. And I connected it up with a couple of car tow chains, and I have a pulling harness, like a strongman truck pulling harness. And then I have a pair of 100-pound dumbbells in my hands, and I'm doing dumbbell bear crawls while dragging a 750-pound sled behind me. And this is not on wheels. This is basically plastic on concrete. So there's a lot of resistance on top of the weight, and it's just like grinding across the concrete. And then turn around and come back and do it again. So this is plow horse stuff. It's a lot of fun.
What's one thing that you did where someone reacted to it in your community, a neighbor, a passerby type person? Well, like give me some a police car. Like, dude, I have a deranged man in the neighborhood, not sure what he's doing, could be a threat. Like give me that scenario.
That one was an interesting one. I was using the same setup with the homemade pipe thing with the yoke thing. I had 400 pounds in the bar, so it wasn't super heavy for me. And had the bar connected via those car tow chains to a wooden pallet and these tow chains are about 20 feet long. So this wooden pallet is dragging behind me. And on that wooden pallet, I've got about 300 pounds of loose weight plates. So those are looped around. I'm carrying 400 pounds on my back, and I'm dragging 300 pounds of weight plates on a wooden pallet behind me down the street. The chains are rattling. The pallet's just making it, it sounds like the world is coming to an end.
The scraping, screeching, awful noise.
Oh, it just sounds like the world is coming to an end. It's crazy. And as I'm about halfway through, police car drives by, and I look over and I see the guy. He's literally just shaking his head in the car, puts his hand in his head, and just keeps on driving.
Oh, okay. So he didn't interrupt what was happening. He just reacted. Okay.
No, it's and I actually know the guy too.
Oh, really? Okay, so he's like, there he is.
It's a small town, but yeah, and he actually had even before that, he had seen me doing some of these things with just the weight on my shoulders, and he stopped and chatted for a bit and said, "Man, that's the coolest thing. I've never seen that set up before." And so then when I added the chains and I added the wooden pallets and the weight plates and stuff, he's like, "Oh God, what are you doing?" But yeah, it's a pretty quiet street, so he just let me go.
Yeah, your neighbors, obviously, you've lived in the same area for a bit now, I would imagine. So your neighbors are just used to seeing some bizarre things. I mean,
yeah. In the summertime, people just, when I first started doing it and I was like doing car pushing sprints up and down, I had literally like 5 people ask me, "Do you need help? Do you need some gas?" Like that. No, I'm doing this for fun.
And they're like, for fun, you say?
Yeah. It was funny though. I was doing a one shoulder carry, with just a barbell on one shoulder, about 180 pounds on there.
So it's a barbell normally loaded, but it's not across your back. It's actually front to back over your one shoulder.
It's actually directly on one shoulder. So I'm carrying it on one shoulder, walking down the street. And I see two people coming towards me on the sidewalk, and they literally ask me for directions. Well, I'm not kidding. I've got all this weight on my shoulder, and obviously, this is not for fun. And they're like, can you tell me where such and such street is? And I'm like, yeah. So I'm still walking with this weight on my shoulder, and I'm giving directions. So you just need to go down here, take a left, go down the street a little ways, and you're right there. And they're like, thanks. And I'm like, keep walking. And it's like,
you had a backpack on. I mean, for them, it was yeah.
Here's some crazy guy walking down the street with almost a couple 100 pounds on his shoulder, and you're asking for directions. I'm like, what? If you're going to do that, then I'm going to give you directions.
This is great.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's nobody more deserving of the title "Mad Scientist of Muscle" that I've ever come across in my experience, and we're roughly the same age, and been, training and loving muscle building for about the same length of time. So. It really is fun to story tell, I think, a little bit, and to share. You are you're the man that people see on Instagram, on YouTube, in your content. I mean, you're living that out on a daily basis. So that's what's so fun. Where does what drove you to this initially was you were kind of a smaller, thinner, smaller stature type person, right? And your desire was to gain strength and gain muscle. So you went on this eating binge and got into the training and totally changed your body in a relatively short period of time. But how has it led to this consistency of passion for decades now? Like, where's it come from?
Well, to me, is a couple of things. One of the biggest things is it's a great creative outlet for me. In that a lot of people, they don't have creative outlets, or they do stuff like painting or sculpting. So I've got the logical side of my brain, which where the scientist comes from, the scientific basis of all this stuff comes from. But I've got just a crazy creative side too, and also the side that I'm not afraid to look stupid. I really don't care if I put something on there, and some of the stuff I've come up with really looks stupid. I'll give you that for now. So some of it's kind of floating around. You see memes of it, to this day, like stuff that I came up with like 14 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, I probably should have posted that.
We got the same story, right? I look back at some of those old YouTube videos, like, what the heck was I doing? But what are you going to do? It's who you are. It's who you were.
Yeah, if you can't laugh at yourself, then it's like, you take yourself too seriously.
Yes. That's the trouble with a lot of folks nowadays. They do take themselves too seriously to a point where it's problematic. And I think you have to be able to laugh at yourself and get over yourself a little bit and not let ego get in the way.
Yeah, you'll live longer, and it's people don't want to be around you when you act like that kind of thing too.
It's true.
It's like, but when you're in doing this and having fun, and I don't actually coach people anymore, but when I do seminars and stuff, when I do, train people, and I'm a great instructor. I'm not a great coach, I'll tell you that right now. I'm a great instructor. Like, I can tell people how to do stuff, but as far as like following along and helping people through a process, it's like, no, I just want to give you the info and I want to turn you loose, because that's how I operate. Yeah. It's like, I don't need somebody to guide me step by step here. It's like, just give me this info and then turn me loose.
Yeah.
That's how I like to operate as far as my training stuff goes, which is why I don't actually do like one-on-one coaching or anything anymore. I did a long time ago, but my passion is really reaching as many people as I can with this stuff. And that's why I like to put out the videos and put out all this content as much as I can, because I come up with this stuff. I'm like, I got to tell somebody else about this, because I have a whole list of people who love this stuff too and appreciate all of these different hacks that I come up with. And, you post this stuff on Facebook or YouTube, and some people don't really get it. And, you hear from them. But it's like, what really cracks me up is half the time, one of the other people who's my regular audience, they turn around and, teach this personal lesson. It's like they said, if somebody says, "Oh, this is so stupid," and somebody else comes in and defends me, it's like I don't even have to touch it. It's like somebody else comes in and says, "That's because blah 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 blah," and this, if you had a brain, you'd know that this kind of thing. It's like, so I didn't even have to, clap back to anybody. It's like somebody else is already on it. So.
That's how you know you've arrived as an authority in your space, is when your followers and the people that like your content and show up for it will defend what your content is all about and the basis for it and the thinking behind it and all that. You don't have to do a darn thing. And that was fun to experience myself years ago on YouTube and stuff. Because it's so easy to hate on other people, and I've never been that type of person. Because what does it get you other than, I guess, I don't know, if you're a mean spirited or unhappy, dissatisfied type person, I guess it's easy to go around knocking everyone else. But again, it goes back to what we said: if you don't take yourself too seriously, and you put out your best stuff that's passion filled, and then just let the chips fall where they may. Some people might love it, some people might hate it, but just because you hate it doesn't mean you have to rip it apart either.
Yeah, I do have to tell you one story, though. It's a few years back on Facebook, and I had somebody watch one of my videos, and their comment was, "Well, I just wasted 4 minutes of my life here that I'll never get back watching this video."
I've gotten the same comment.
And what I wrote back to them was, I got so many more likes off the comment than I did off the video. Because what I wrote back was, "Why did you watch the whole thing?" It was a 4-minute video, and it's like, why did you watch the whole thing if it was a waste of your time? And they wrote something snarky back, and then I wrote, "Well, now you wasted another 5 minutes of your life writing back to me like this, and now you're going to waste another 10 minutes getting mad about what I wrote, and now you're going to waste another 10 minutes trying to figure out what to say back, and then you wasted like an hour of your life getting mad at me for this video that you said was a waste of your time." And it's like, now that time is yours, and it's mine.
Right.
Rent free, is that as they say?
Yeah, they just, you short circuited that person is what happened. They just started like, and then their head exploded.
They weren't expecting something like that because there was no logical way for them to get out of it.
Right.
It's like, well, if you were wasting your time, why did you watch the whole video?
That's right.
It's
yeah.
video. So
yeah.
They couldn't answer.
Oh,
they couldn't get anything.
Yeah, it's like a self-defeating claim. It's like it's like saying my parents had no kids that lived, or something like that. It's like,
exactly.
It's like, don't go down this rabbit hole because there's no logic to what you're doing right now. You're investing all this emotional energy in something that was already a waste of your time.
And I was having fun with it.
And you know what you did is you created a super engagement for a particular video over something that wasn't necessarily directly related to the video itself. And it probably helped blow that video up to some degree, or at least create more buzz around it, giving it probably more viewership and visibility. And we had a similar video years ago. Obviously, Brian Klepacki, who you're familiar with, just being a coach on our channel for many years, and a friend of ours. And he had done a video right when we took over in this building here. It was completely naked out there. There was nothing in the compound. It was barren. So we had him come over once we took the building and said, just start shooting content in there, even though there's nothing there. Bring some dumbbells and some kettlebells with you and, whatever, do some stuff. So he makes a posture video out there. A way to correct posture, probably goes over like 3 or 4 different exercises. It's hot because it's like just the tail end. Well, it's always hot here in Florida, but
it's like that.
It was like the tail end of summer or very early fall, but still really humid and hot in the compound. So he was shirtless, as a lot, when you're kind of thin and lean and muscular, like you go shirtless. I don't do that anymore, but he's out there shirtless, and people are zeroing in on this video on his nipples and on the tattoo on his arm. And so the whole conversation about this video becomes why are you showing us posture exercises shirtless, and why are your nipples this, that, or the other? And then what's that tattoo mean? And that video went viral. It was like our first viral video. And I don't know if it was due to the weird comments, hundreds of comments. And this video was literally getting tens of thousands of views a day for like months. And it was totally organic. Like, this is many years ago, back when we really weren't reinvesting in the channel at all with advertising money or anything else. And hilarious. We just had such a laugh about it. And he took it great. He was laughing too. So
yeah, you never know what something's going to go viral for, man. It's just crazy.
Right. You just don't know. It's like, why is everybody so concerned with his nipples? You know, like, what, the circumference of them, the diameter? What are we so concerned with? You know, it's like, sometimes it's hot out there. You know, you're going to be shirtless when you do exercise.
That's funny.
So anyway, okay. So a few things that I wanted to kind of hit on was, the way you train, I feel like, really applies great to what I think of as real world strength versus gym strength. And so I wanted to kind of just briefly touch on what the difference is, because I think there's so many guys out there walking around, you know, that want the big muscles and want the look that the bodybuilding, true bodybuilding kind of classic training gives them. The body part splits and all that stuff. But how does that really apply to how they can utilize their bodies in the real world? So it's kind of like, is it all for aesthetics and no real function? And I think that the way you train really is contradictory to that, while you're still getting the side benefits of the look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that I come up with is because I'm using tools, dumbbells, kettlebells, and all that in very different ways. It develops the muscles in very different ways. And don't get me wrong, I still do a lot of bodybuilding exercises. Like, I still do dumbbell curls, I still do bench press, I still do a lot of those. But a lot of the stuff and methodologies that I come up with take those kind of to a whole different level. And this is especially true when it comes to like the loaded carries or the lifting awkward, weird objects kind of thing. And doing that kind of thing is what really takes it to the next level. Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to train to look good. Nothing wrong with that at all. That's how I started training. And as time kind of went on, I kind of realized, okay, I'm not going to get that big giant bodybuilder look. I did bulk myself up to about 230 pounds at one point, about 20 years ago. And the amount of eating I had to do to maintain that, and the amount of training I had to do is just ridiculous. I'm a natural ectomorph. Never taken any steroids, never have, never will. And I have an ectomorphic frame, so to build up that level of mass, and it wasn't all muscle, but a lot of it was, it takes a lot of dedicated training and eating. And so what I kind of scaled back then was like, okay, I still want to lift and look good, but I also want to be more functional. And then kind of in the early 2000s, I really discovered from a Dan John article on T Nation was loaded carries. And I hadn't really done much of that at all. Once I started really doing more of that and kind of really, really going down the rabbit hole on that is when I really developed a lot of unique strength. And before that, I had done stuff like partials and lockouts and stuff like that, which is great for connective tissue training. And that is another thing that's very neglected by a lot of people, especially people who just want to train for aesthetics, is training the connective tissue is actually going to help with your aesthetics, because it's going to help you build muscle faster. Because your body won't let your muscle build unless you're not natural at a faster rate than your connective tissue can handle it. So that's why you see a lot of people who go on steroids, their strength goes up so fast, it kind of overrides that limitation, and their muscles get too strong too fast for their connective tissue. You see a lot of pec tears, that kind of thing. But when you do static holds, when you do partial training, you develop the tendons, the ligaments, the fascia, all that connective tissue strength, so you can do a lot of these things and build the muscle mass without the limitations that you'd normally get. And this applies to strength as well. For a long time, before I discovered partials, I was stuck at a 300-pound bench press. I just couldn't get past that. Then I started doing a lot of lockouts, and eventually, within about a year, worked my way up to 350 for a max, which was pretty good.
Wow.
For not having any good structure for bench press.
Right.
So.
Yeah. No, that's really good. It's I always think of the term farm boy strong, that kind of, it's like, why are so many of the massive, when you think of large athletes in performance sports and stuff, why are so many of them kind of like big old farm boys and stuff like that? It's because by nature, just the way they were raised, with the way they had to use their bodies on a farm, picking up heavy objects and throwing them and twisting with them and pushing them up over their head and carrying things. The weighted carries are, and there's so much fun, as it's almost like a bit of a competitive thing that you can do with yourself, picking something up and carrying it for distance. Like, oh, I can dictate the distance. I can dictate how much weight I'm carrying. I can dictate how long I'm carrying it for. Like all of these different things. It becomes a lot of fun, and we have more fun on our turf area in here with the prowler and the yoke and the different things you can do on there, I think, than just about any part of the gym. And it comes down to a lot of the weighted carries and that more real world strength training approach.
Absolutely, yeah. And for me, it was doing the loaded carries and the different types was a total game changer for me. It really just kind of flipped everything 180 for me. It's like, okay, this is how you really build that deep strength, that deep body strength, the stuff that you don't lose over time, And even in, getting into my late 40s, last fall, I actually got a new training bar. Have you ever seen a Mars bar?
Mars bar?
It's MARRS. It's like a squat bar, but it kind of goes over you like a backpack.
Oh, okay.
It's got really thick padding, and it's a phenomenal piece of equipment. Got it for my birthday from my wife. And I worked up to see how much I could do on a loaded carry with that inside of a power rack. So I set up my rack.
I've seen some of these videos with that, right? Have you done?
Yeah. So I set the safety rails, and my rack is rated to 2,000 pounds. So, I set the rails to like a half an inch below where the bar is going to sit. And I managed to work up to 1,000 pounds.
Wow.
Carrying that. And that's 5 times my current body weight. And so I walked basically from one end of the rack, carried the 1,000 pounds to the other end of the rack, and then set it down. But even just doing partials with that is interesting. But to be able to actually take steps with that amount of weight is a whole different level of core strength and body strength and connective tissue strength and balance. If you think about the balance part of this, I actually found that the first step that I took was the hardest step, not the last step. Like I actually could have walked further, if I had a longer rack to do it with. But just standing up on 2 feet and then getting that 1,000 pounds moving off on 1 foot and getting that entire load going forward, but not so far forward that you tip over and lose it, but just to keep that kind of weight under control enough to keep that momentum going.
Wow.
It was just like, wow, this is eye-opening. And that was even different than I did a farmer's carry with 810 pounds. And it was different than that too. It's like a whole different, having the weight on your back versus the weight hanging. But having the 1,000, it's like, you can literally feel your entire body compressing. It's just crazy. And it's like every step I took, I think the bar was that far above the rails at the start and like that far at the end.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because, my legs were shorter, but everything, all the space between your vertebrae and stuff, it does get compressed. And then when you set the bar down, it feels like you're like an accordion. It's just like open. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's to be able to move that, but even just in general, lockout partials, great way to go. It's phenomenal. That builds deep strength as well, but doing it and actually moving that kind of load and controlling that kind of load while you're moving it, it's just, that's what really is, to me, that's a demonstration of strength, beyond a lot of other things.
Yeah. No, and that's what's so appealing to following you and your content is you never know what you're going to see next and how that can apply to your life or improving a lift or there's helping grow a certain part of the body. It's like entertainment mixed with like real world application. It's really cool, and like just to see like you're swiping and you're looking and you're like, okay, oh my gosh, those look like heavy dumbbells. What? And look at how he has this set up. Like, what the heck is he going to do here? But then what I really like too with a lot of your posts is, and probably inside your long form like YouTube content, is you go really deep on your descriptions. Like you really take people step by step, really writing out like your thought process and why you did it this way and why you avoided this. And you're really insightful and I think really thoughtful with that, so that people have a really good understanding and explanation if they want to dig deeper rather than just watching the content. Now they have something to fall back on with the kind of your thought process.
Yeah, and I honestly think that part is just tremendously important, is because a lot of the stuff that I do is so different, and the equipment I have is sometimes very specific. I want to tell people the process behind how it works, why it works, and how they can adapt that to whatever equipment that they personally have.
Right.
Because I've got some stuff that not a lot of people have. Yeah. And there's some times where I'm like, okay, this might not apply to everybody, but if you've got this equipment, give this version of it a try. Like if you've got a safety squat bar, here's how to set it up for doing an amazing shoulder press, And, I've had some pretty high level coaches, find some of my stuff and go like, wow, this is actually my favorite shoulder exercise now. It's like I use this all the time now. And it's like, it's pretty cool to see when I come up, get people get feedback like that, where somebody says, it's like, I saw this and I'm like, this is brilliant. I'm going to start using this. Or one of the most rewarding things is when somebody uses one of my exercises and says, this is exactly what I've been looking for years. Yeah. And it's like, it may be like a really off the wall piece of content that's like maybe only applies to a few people here and there. I know it's not going to get a lot of traction, but I know the person who's going to appreciate it is going to really appreciate it.
Right. Yeah. It's like it's really dialed in for a particular end, but when the person lands on it and it's like the perfect person, the content was made for them.
Literally, yeah. It's like I've had something like that where it's like you might get a few people like it or not even views on it or something, but the one person puts in the feedback and says, I tried this and it literally like fixed my carpal tunnel syndrome or something like that.
Right.
It's like that's awesome. That just makes it all worthwhile when you see that, when it's like, okay, a good squat exercise or a good deadlift variation or something is great, and a lot of people appreciate that, but the one person who's like, this was life-changing for them, that just blows your mind when you see it.
Do you see yourself continuing to go down this rabbit hole of exercise and innovation for the next so many years?
Oh yeah, I can't stop. I can't stop. So it's just gonna come out anyways. Like I just, there were times where I'd go for like years where I wouldn't even have like a set workout, where I would just be like, okay, what am I gonna do today? What am I gonna do today? And I would be thinking of stuff constantly. And there are times where, like right now, my current training is actually pretty normal. It's using one of my own density training methods, but it's like, okay, I'm doing bench press, I'm doing curls, I'm doing chins, and that's my workout. Where it's not necessarily doing anything crazy right now, but it's kind of like the time in between where sometimes I actually want to give it a break sometimes from that. Where I actually want to say, okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm not going to, challenge myself to try and think of anything else, but I'm just going to do this. And of course I always do, but
Have you accidentally achieved any kind of world record, or is that anything you've ever sought to do with some of your kind of just totally out of the box training methods? Have you ever stumbled upon something that you did that you were like, geez, I wonder if that would be considered like a record, or if something anyone has ever done before? I mean, have you ever explored that or spent time thinking that?
I haven't actually. I've never even looked into it. But the things that I think would probably come closest might be that 500-pound mile carry, and potentially carrying the 1,000 pounds.
Right.
That's when you look at some of the world's strongest men, when they do the yoke carries, like they're carrying, 1,800 pounds, stuff like that, 1,700 pounds. That's a lot of weight. But when you weigh 400 pounds yourself, it's maybe 4 times your body weight. It's like I'm carrying 5 times my body weight.
Right.
So there's variations there. It's like, as far as absolute weight,
right.
That's, not even close. But in terms of, ratios, you never know. I don't know if anybody's pushed it that far. So.
That's exactly right. Absolutely. Yeah. One of the guys earlier in my, fitness and strength career, been late 90s. He was a master's level power lifter, getting ready for competition in South Africa. And I was getting clients from him. He had a little training business where he had some trainers working under him that he was giving clients to. And I remember spotting him one day. I've told this story before in past conversations, but his name's Lloyd Weinstein. You can look him up. He's a terrific power lifter, 55 pound man, built like a tank. And I remember him doing triples, squatting with I want to say it was at least 405, if not 450, somewhere in that range, getting ready for, like I said, competition, where he squatted well into the 500s. And this is a guy who's 150 pounds, right? So it's a lot more than he weighs. Almost 4 times. Yeah, he was able to squat almost 4 times his body weight. And I remember spotting him in a traditional deep squat spot. So you're tracking them all the way down with your forearms kind of up against their upper body. So you're locked in with them almost, going down and coming up. And I just remember how perfect his form was, and how hard his body, he was as hard as my desk. Everything about him was perfection and just rigid. And I remember thinking, gosh, how powerful for a 150 pound man. I would want no part of messing with this guy, because he's just built like a piece of iron,
Yeah.
And I think in a way that's kind of what you've created for yourself, is this kind of iron body built by just years, decades of intense training and different approaches, right? And really testing the limits of what your body is capable of, which a lot of people have no idea what their body is capable of. They've never really sniffed that out. They've never sought that out. Whereas you've this is interesting to me. I want to kind of see what I can do here. And it's really fun. But you do it in a safe way.
That's the trick, is kind of knowing where your limits are, pushing your limits, but understanding how far you can or cannot go up to them. So you really don't ever want to push to the point of injury.
Right.
And that's kind of, as far as feedback goes, you kind of really want to pay attention to those things. When I'm doing those, really heavy loaded carries, it's like meditation, because everything just tunes out. When you're doing it, your focus gets so narrow. I don't hear anything. I don't understand anything around me. It's just as soon as that weight is supported by me, I get feedback. It's weird to describe, because all of a sudden you feel everything in your entire body, and you have to pay attention to how everything is feeling, and you have to understand how everything is interacting and how it's all working in order to take the next step. There's nothing autopilot about it when you're using weight like that, because you literally have to pay attention to, okay, what's my toe doing? Is it shifted to the side? Okay. And that comes with practice. As you do more and more of this, you obviously don't jump into that kind of weight overnight. You really have to build up to it over time, because connective tissue does take a long time to develop. And I've been doing stuff like this for 30 years or more. So I've had time to develop that connective tissue, the kinesthetic awareness, the awareness of, and that level of focus to be able to do these things safely. Whereas, when I do want to inspire people to do heavy stuff and to push their limits, but to also take the time to develop that mental connection to yourself as well. because it is possible to go too heavy too fast and to have a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing you want to do. And that's the last thing I would want anybody to have is any issues with this kind of thing. So, if you want to try doing, heavy loaded carries, like not even farmer's walk, but in the yoke, do them inside the power rack with the bar set just above the safety rails, walk forward or backward and both inside the power rack with a weight that's about your 1 rep max. Because this is a weight you've walked out with before for squats.
Right.
So you get the feel, and this will actually help your squatting because you'll get more comfortable with a heavy walkout.
Right.
You get more comfortable with that heavy load on your back, and take that weight, walk forwards and backwards with it, and then gradually ramp that up, and then you're developing the nervous system, the feel for heavy weight, that inside squat scab on your back, for the bar.
That's right.
If you squat heavy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like it kind of deadens the nerves after a while, and it won't feel as bad on your back.
That's right.
So, people who say the squat bar hurts your back, okay, yeah, it will for a while until you deaden those nerves, and then you'll be fine.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, every one of us has been with a client at some point in our career. If you're a trainer listening, and they do not like the way that bar feels on their back. Can I get that pad that goes on there? I don't like that. And it's like, well, you get used to it. It's kind of like anything else. It's like breaking in a new pair of sneakers. They don't feel great at first. You gotta walk in them a little while, and that bar just starts to feel just right. When it's not in the right spot on your back, but it's not a comfort thing. It's more of a, I think, as you said before, a tolerable thing, more of a reasonable amount of pain or discomfort.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is not bad, but it kind of deadens it enough to feel okay.
Right.
So and then you can go forward with it.
Exactly right. So what are some of your? I want to provide our listeners with some of what you would think, or what you would say, and what you think are the must-haves for someone to really put together a fun home gym environment or experience. Because obviously in today's day and age, so many people have gravitated to exercise at home. Even though, there's still great fitness options out there in the world to have memberships and stuff. But I think more people want to be prepared if they are stuck at home, or if there's this, that, or the other. They want that option in their garage. So what would you say are kind of some must-have items?
Number one, dumbbells. Whether they're pre-made dumbbells or adjustable ones you can put plates on. That's the number one thing. You can cover pretty much everything with a good set of dumbbells. Second is a bench, and that's even before barbells. I would get a bench, an adjustable incline bench. That's going to give you a lot of different things than you can do with dumbbells. And for example, if dumbbell bench press, great. Barbell bench press without a rack, I wouldn't recommend it alone at all. That's why I would say dumbbells, then bench, then a good barbell set with free weight. Then your next step is a rack. And with dumbbells, bench, barbells, and a rack, you can do pretty much anything other than very specialized things. I mean, you can mimic a lot of cable stuff using bands and or with dumbbells based on how you change your body orientation. The power rack I would recommend is one that has the ability to have a cable stack on top of it, which is what I have in my basement. So I've got the rack, I've got the high-low pulley attached to the rack, then you're golden. You can do just about anything, just these simple things. You can add in kettlebells. Kettlebells are awesome too. They're a little tougher to learn than dumbbells, a little less versatile. I find very, very good training tools as well. But those are the big things, and that's what really 95% of my own training is done.
Yep.
Just these things.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think of the, when you have a rack, a power rack that's, well built, it can kind of like you said, yours is capable of like a 2,000 pound max, right? So you want to get something that doesn't have to be as phenomenal as Nick's if you're not too concerned about hitting super heavy poundages like that. But it's got to be reasonable, like I would say at least light commercial, if not commercial grade. Don't spend your money on something cheap. If it's cheap, it's probably crap, and you're going to experience an issue with it where it's not going to properly support weight, or it's gonna it's gonna break on you in mid lift, and that's certainly something you don't want. But I'm kind of picturing you right now turning your power rack into a a lot of power racks obviously have a crossbar for doing pull-ups with a normal diameter bar. But then when I think of Nick doing pull-ups, I think of him taking two of his barbells across the top of the rack or along the safety bars and putting them perpendicular to that, so that they, as they normally would sit, and then putting a ton of weight on one side so that he can hang off the other and do neutral grip fat bar pull-ups.
Yes.
I know I've seen you do that one before.
Yes. That is one of my favorites, a counterbalance neutral grip fat end bar pull-up.
Yes.
So I've got the safety rail set on one side, and the other side it's lower, and I'm outside the rack and I'm facing into the rack.
Right.
So as you visualize, I pull down the bar, the weight comes up off the other end. So I'm keeping these bars perfectly horizontal while there's that much space, and I'm pulling myself up. Well, the weight is counterbalancing my body weight. So that entire time using this fat bar grip, you have to gauge how you're moving your body. You can't go too fast, you can't go too slow. You have to continuously feedback counterbalance your body all the way up, all the way down, and then do reps like that without the other end of the barbells touching back down. And that's just, it's insane, but it works like crazy.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
No.
I mean, I could probably go on and on for an hour about all the cool things that I've seen you do. So because people are going to want to see, what you're doing. If they're not familiar with you now, they're going to certainly want to be checking you out. Where is the best place, or maybe if there's two places that you want to send our listeners to go see your content and start to get a feel for what you're doing?
I'd say the single best place is my website, madscientistofmuscle.com.
Nice.
And it's literally madscientistofmuscle.com. I post new stuff on there all the time. I've got a ton of stuff on there right now. I've got links to all my books on there. I've written about 25 books as far as programs, fat loss, muscle building, strength, exercises, the works. And there's a ton of really, really good stuff on there. And you can learn a lot just from the free stuff on there without even getting.
Yeah. Do you embed some of the content that's going up like across YouTube or Instagram? Do you embed it in the website? So it's Yeah.
Like almost every single page on there that has like an exercise or a program or a workout has the YouTube video embedded right in there.
Oh, that's great.
You're able to get all the full video rundown, the full explanation down below. Other related stuff that you can, really go down the rabbit hole and explore further on there.
Mm-hmm.
There's, muscle exercises for every muscle group on there. There's strength, there's muscle building, there's fat loss, all kinds of cool stuff.
Wow. Yeah, it really is. It's like an encyclopedia for innovative muscle building, really, and stuff that you've never seen before or even thought of. This is a guy, Nick's doing all the work for you. He's already sat around with his test tubes and his bubbling green liquids, right? And he has thought up some great ways for you to creatively strengthen your body, but do it safely. And again, like you said, I love what you said before. It's not like anyone wants to strap a refrigerator to their body to do a pull-up, right, to make it heavier. But that's not what you do. You're doing stuff that's very much reasonable for even the beginner to intermediate level person to utilize the basics when it comes to weight training and strength training: dumbbells, barbells, plate weight, power rack. This is all stuff everyone's familiar with. Every gym in America has that stuff, barring Planet Fitness, who maybe only has machines. But you're using. We don't have to say any more about that place. You're using everyday, very much accessible stuff to do really out of the box movements and for strength training and muscle development. So it really is so much fun. Plus, like you said, you've written so many great programs. There's so much content there. You're content rich. much like Critical Bench has been over the years, where there's just more than what people could even take in probably. And if you gave them a couple of years, they wouldn't get through all of your stuff.
And just one thing too is
I encourage everyone, please go check it out. It's madscientistofmuscle.com.
Yeah, and just so you know too, it's not all crazy stuff.
No.
Like, some of it is crazy stuff, granted, but some of the stuff there won't make you look different. It'll just make you work better.
That's right.
And that's one of the key things I want people to know too, is like, there's some stuff, it's like, I can show you a better way to do a dumbbell curl that won't hurt your back, that won't let you swing the weights around. And literally all you have to do is, instead of standing with your feet side by side, you split stance. You put 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. Puts the weight inside your base of support. Now you don't have any back stress. Now you can curl the weight without swinging it around. Now your form is good. This is great for a beginner. There's all kinds of stuff like that on there too.
Yeah, little tweaks, little corrective things to improve, as you said, technique and form, and putting more beginner level people into optimal positions for muscle development. So
and getting in and out of exercises. That's something that a lot of people don't cover, is not just doing the exercise, which is important, but safely getting in and out of position for these exercises is very important as well.
Yes.
That's not often covered in a lot of ways. It's like, not only should you do the exercise right, but you need to prepare for the setup right. Otherwise, that can be more injurious than the exercise itself done incorrectly.
Wow.
I've known people who do squats, but they step out with the bar and they don't keep their body underneath it, and they lean forward to re-rack it, and then they throw their back out because they're off kilter. It's like the setup and the coming out of it is just as important as the exercise.
Wow.
So.
It's a great point. Great point, man. Points coming every minute. You got so much goodness, so much stuff to say there. Well, hey, I've used up so much of Nick's time here today. We have to let him get back to the laboratory. But Nick, it's so much fun. Just to, obviously today, very conversational, and really just two guys talking about stuff that they really like, and how fascinated we all are with what you've done and how long you've been doing it. And we just hope that you continue to do it and inspire other people to push the limits safely and enjoy themselves, and then reap the benefits of it. And we just applaud your efforts. And please, listeners, go check out Nick's website. Again, it's madscientistofmuscle.com, right? And he is all over YouTube. He's all over Instagram. So, I mean, you can follow him and see what he's doing. Daily and weekly uploads and posts. So much content there to enjoy. You can comment and interact with him. He's great at engaging in conversation, too, through social media, which is really nice. When you get people that are followers and fans, and then the guy is actually like getting back to you and communicating, that's a big part of it. And so he will do that. So take advantage of that. And we thank you again for listening to Strong by Design. Now's a good time to share this episode with a friend, family member, somebody who maybe needs to change up their training methods. Maybe they've been doing the same darn thing in the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the last 10 years, and they need some creativity. Well, Nick would be a great place for them to start. So share this episode, please. We thank you in advance for doing that. We'll be back next week, as always, here on Strong by Design. We'll see you then. God bless. Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.